Hello everyone. So today we are going to start our module 5 of chapter number 1 from the beginning of the time. In today's module we will be covering the topics of early humans and how did they used to make their tools and their various modes of communication. In earlier times, it were not only the humans who used to make the tools, there were birds as well as other forms of primates like monkeys and chimpanzees who also used to make small tools to collect food for themselves. But most of the earlier tools that we have found evidence of were made by the humans. It is said that certain anatomical and neurological adaptations have led to the skilled use of hands, probably due to the important role of tools in human lives. Moreover, the ways in which humans use and make tools often require greater memory and complex organization skills, both of which were absent in the earlier apes. That's why most of the tools that we have found are made by the humans, not by the other primates. The earliest evidence of making and use of stone tools comes from the sites in Ethiopia and Kenya. It is likely that the earliest stone tool makers were the Australopithecus. As in case of some other activities, we do not know how the tools were made. Were it made by men or were it made by women? According to archaeologists, it is possible that stone tool makers were both women and men. Women in particular may have made and used tools to obtain food for themselves as well as to sustain their children after weaning. About 35,000 years ago, improvement in the techniques for killing animals are evident from the appearance of new kinds of tools such as spear throwers and the bows and the arrows. The meat thus obtained was probably processed by removing the bones, followed by drying, smoking, and storage. Thus, food could be stored for later consumption. There were other changes such as the trapping of fur-bearing animals and to use the fur for clothing and the invention of sewing needles. The earliest evidence of sew cloth comes from 21,000 years ago. Besides, with the introduction of punch blade technique, which is a technique to sharpen the tools, it is possible to make engravings on bone, ivory, or wood and make small chisel like tools like small knives, etc. The use of a spear it enabled hunters to hunt from the longer distances. So thus we can see that most of the earlier tools were made by the early humans and not by the other primates like monkeys and apes because of the more development of the human brain, and they used tools basically for hunting and making their food and to save themselves from the other wild animals. And with time the technique of the tool making also improved. Our next topic is the modes of communication, that is the development of the language and along with it the development of art. Among living beings it is human alone that have a language. There are several views on the language development. That means there are various views how the language developed amongst the earliest humans. So the first stage it is said that the hominid language involved gestures or simply hand movements through which they used to communicate with each other. In the next phase, the spoken language was preceded by vocal but non-verbal communication such as singing or humming, like the sounds that are made by the birds. It is said that earlier humans also used to make such sounds before they learned how to speak. It is believed that the earliest human speech probably began with the calls like the early primates, that is through singing and humming, and by the time the humans may have possessed a small number of speech sounds in the early stages. Gradually, this may have developed into their language. It has been suggested that the brain of Homo habilis who were the earliest tool makers, they had certain features which would have made it possible for them to speak. Language may have developed thus as early as 2 million years ago. The evolution of vocal tract was very important, and it is said that the evolution of vocal tract occurred around 200,000 years ago. It is more specifically associated with the development of modern humans. A third suggestion is that language developed around the same time as art, that is, around 40,000 to 35,000 years ago. The development of spoken language has been seen as closely connected with art since both are media for communication. Hundreds of paintings of animals have been discovered in the caves in France and Spain. These include mostly the depictions of the wild animals like bisons, horses, deer, rhinos, lions, panthers, etc. Several explanations have been offered that why only paintings of wild animals were painted by the early humans. This is because of the importance of hunting according to some people. It is suggested that the paintings of animals were associated with ritual and magic. The act of painting would have been a ritual to ensure a successful hunt. Another explanation offered is that these caves were possibly meeting places for small groups of people or location for group activities. These groups could have shared hunting techniques and knowledge, while painting and engraving served as the media for passing information from one generation to the next. So, we can see how language developed. Simply, in earlier times, the mode of communication was through the hand movement, hand gestures, and the humming sounds like birds. Later on, with the development of the vocal text in the humans, the speech developed, and with speech developed the language. Along with language, art developed, which was a very important mode of communication and whose evidences are found in the caves of Spain and France. In our next module, we will try to find out whether the information about today's living hunter gatherers could be used to understand the past societies of the hunting gathering, and we will also study how the agriculture began and changed the entire human societies.